For all you groundhoppers out there, this podcast is for you. This is the FANA Fan Podcast, and I'm Topliss, and for all you groundhoppers out there, this podcast is for you. I'm delighted tonight to be joined by one of the men behind Groundhop UK and well-known groundhopper around these parts. It's good old Laurence. How are you, mate?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Not too bad.
No, brilliant. Thank you. Thank you for coming on. Great to meet you at Ilkley on the Northwest Hop a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, let's not talk about the game.
Let's not talk about the game, indeed. We're all as sick as each other, weren't we?
Nah,
So,
I enjoyed it, actually.
I know you did, I didn't. So, Laurence Reade from Oxford. How did it start? How did you get into football?
I suppose like quite a few others. Had a season ticket at my local club, Oxford United. Followed them home and away, which I'll tell you what was quite handy for ground hopping because, you know, when I first started them, we're in what's now League One, where we now are. Went right up to what would now be the Premier League, and then went all the way down to what's now the National League Premier. So 5 divisions in 20 odd years. So that was quite handy. But in the end, pricing tends to shove you towards non-league. But what really started it was this habit that clubs have of in pre-season sending a team to the local non-league side. And, you know, you started clocking up all these sort of smaller clubs. And of course, it was a big deal for them because often it was their biggest attendance of the season, and the welcome was lovely, and you didn't get sort of made to feel like a third-class citizen by the local police force just for being there. You know, there wasn't any restrictions on you, you know, having a beer or just, you know, little things like, you know, just being able to stroll off and get yourself a cup of tea and queue up and still be able to see the game. And often when Oxford were away and I didn't, you know, I'd already done the ground umpteen times, I just went and started doing a local game, and it sort of grew from there. I've still got my season ticket. I still use it, but, you know, the other stuff has sort of almost taken on a life of its own.
You got the non-league bug.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say, in the end, I wouldn't even say it's necessarily non-league. It's just football. I mean, I write the blog, football wherever it may be, and that's a genuine comment on how I see things. It's wherever it is. If there's a game and it interests me, off I go. From the
quarry at Millhead to the beautiful Gwent Valleys or Hope Valley, whatever. You're right, it can be anywhere.
Yeah, I've never done Millhead though. Millhead's on the to-do list, very high up.
Wow, you've not done Millhead.
Not yet. Carnforth, isn't it?
Yes, it's I believe Lancashire, up near Morecambe, I think.
Bank League, I think. Yeah, Iodine Park, isn't it? Because yes. So named because you need iodine to put all the cuts from the flint sticking out of the pitch.
Yeah, it certainly do. Yeah, it's a great way of
definitely.
It.
That's the kind of ground I love, because you can't make a ground like that up, can you?
No chance. You can't build that. You can't plan for that, can you?
Yeah, grounds like that evolve. They're not made.
No, absolutely not. So Oxford United, like you say, he started in League One. It is now in League One after all these years.
But
all the way up and down.
We didn't do a Rochdale and stay there for 30 odd years.
I never knew they were a top flight club though.
Yeah, we had 3 seasons. We went up in 85, 86, won the League Cup the next season, and then had 2 more seasons in the top flight. We're quite forward, like, you know, John Aldridge, Trevor Hebbard, Ray Houghton, you know, good players. Oh, and, you know, it was great while it lasted. We were the first, I think, club that had played top flight football to be relegated out of the league. Because, you know, Oldham are now the first club to have played in the Premier League to have... No, we were the first club to have won a major trophy to get relegated out of the league. Oldham are the first club who have played in the Premier League to get relegated out of the league.
Fair play, statistician there. But it's not always the best one to have, is it?
Well, not that one, no. I do feel for their fans. I have to say, I've been one of the great advantages of being an Oxford United fan is I know what it is to get relegated. It's happened a lot, but there is something completely different about being relegated out of the league. it hurts 10 times as much. I'll never forget that day. Dad and I just walked back to the car and we didn't say a word. There was nothing to discuss. Absolutely nothing. You heard all these Leyton Orient fans, because in beating us and sending us down, they got promoted themselves. And at the end, the players went round the pitch, all deployed, all the usual stuff. And we just looked at each other and just walked out. Just went and sat in the car, waiting for the traffic to clear, listening to the radio. Didn't say a word. Didn't say a word.
And as you know as well, it's a long road back for some clubs. Like, I mean, I do fear for Scunthorpe more than I do Oldham, because I've seen Scunthorpe this season. They were poor, worryingly poor. And I think, I don't want to call it early, but could they go down again at some point during this time? Oldham, I don't think will, but Scunthorpe, if that team stays together, that's a problem.
York City.
And they're another one. Look how they're struggling.
Who was it that did? Stockport
Yeah.
did. There's one or two. There will always be this perception, I think, amongst some fans that when it happens, oh, we're on loan to the National League. No, you're not.
No, you're not.
Oh, no, you're not. No, some do go straight back up. Bristol Rovers did. Carlisle United did. Don't treat it as a gimme. It really isn't.
No,
it's hard, and you get used to the things that you're used to the fact that in League Two that your away team will turn up in a coach. I remember that first season we were playing in the same division as Clarence Park. Name escapes me.
Clarence Park. I've heard that ground.
St Albans.
Yes, that's the one.
And they turned up in a fleet of cars, and it was nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with turning up in a fleet of cars, but when you're used to the culture of turning up, and everything's done a certain way, I remember our stewards didn't know what to do. Well, you better go in the car park, but we're the players. It's a rude awakening. It really is.
Yeah.
Having to play in the fourth qualifying round as well.
Yeah, there's no VIPs in non-league. Not very much of them when you go down like that. No.
And of course, from being, poor damaged Oxford United, we went to being the big fish in the small pond, which is awful because everybody wants to shoot you.
Yeah, and it's always a cup final, isn't it? They always bring loads more fans.
Took us 4 years to get back. I'll tell you what, we only managed that through the playoffs. We beat York City, who followed us up the next season and then lasted 2 seasons, then got relegated twice. Madhouse, really was.
Yeah. I mean, they are a club.
Had to be, they all say that. I remember Oxford getting relegated into the league and someone saying, well, Laurence will love that. It'll be a whole load of new grounds for him to visit. I didn't have the heart to tell them I'd done them all already. And then he started getting phone calls from the press guys from saying, I see we've drawn Tunbridge Angels. What's it like? As if they thought I'd been there. I had.
Oh dear.
But I hope in a sense that Oldham first and foremost get their fans get the club back, because what is going on there is not nice. Secondly, understand that they've got a long road in front of them. It's not easy. It really isn't.
No, they're another club that's been done in by poor ownership.
Yeah,
and,
I saw them at Brentford in the League Cup earlier in the season, and you've got the question when, for a game of that magnitude, they could only name 4 substitutes, and 2 of those were scholars.
Yeah, me. That is not. But I mean, I can remember. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't know if you've met George and Jack and Andy and Jake Duncan. They Oldham fans. And Andy told me that because I was with him at Congleton Town a couple of weeks ago, he said to me, "Watch Under the Cosh, Anthony Gerrard," and that the story he told the day after that he took over was that there was so many players, Asian players, just turned up just like that. Don't know who they were, just turned up for training. He thought, "What on earth is this?" And they were waiting on paychecks, just didn't have a clue. It's a cracking story.
You get Yes, it is. It is. All the best to them, but that ain't going to be easy, you know.
I mean, did Oxford go down to poor ownership, or was it just the?
Yes, yeah, and we're still paying the price for it now. Basically, the owner of the club at the start of the season was Firoz Kazam, and Kazam still owns the stadium. It's why we will be homeless in 5 years' time. Now we've got, permission to speak to the council with regard to a new stadium that we'll build. But the fact is that the relationship between club and stadium owner is still toxic. And in the end, what it took to get rid of him from the club itself was a boardroom protest. We blocked the Grenoble Road. We got rid of him. He sold the club for £1.
Yeah.
But the team was already in free fall, and he still owns the ground. And that's an issue because he doesn't want us there. He'd like to build houses on it. We don't want to be there. And we were very close to being ground sharing at Wycombe Wanderers for the start of this season.
Oh dear.
So you pay the price. The club are doing well. We're okay. We'll miss out on the playoffs, but we're a good, stable League One club. But there's a glass ceiling called Firoz Kazam, which is why we struggle to go any higher.
Well, I hope that gets sorted quickly because it's not nice to ground share. Fans will not turn up at Wycombe, will they? As much as they do at the Castle.
No, never. No, and well, that's now going to be up to the powers that be. The finance is there to do it, but you're talking a university town. Land is at a premium.
Yeah,
and there's always a politician willing to say, "Oh, well, they can go somewhere else." And of course, all they're doing is kicking the can down the road. As long as it's not on their backyard, they're happy. So, and then the next politician says, "Oh, yeah, we love the idea of having a stadium, just not there." It'll come round. I'm reasonably hopeful for this one, though.
No, I'm sure it'll get sorted, mate. Definitely. So, even with Oxford, then in your time, you ticked off a few non-league grounds during pre-season.
Well, as I say, we have 4 seasons in the conference, so
yeah. Even in friendlies.
Pardon?
Even in pre-season friendlies.
Oh yeah. No, even with Oxford, there was always an angle. I enjoy those pre-season friendlies. I do regret a lot of these bigger clubs now sending their first 11s abroad for friendlies, because to me that's a vital source of income for the local non-league club. When you think about it, if Oxford have a pre-season tour of, say, Spain or something, lovely. The fans who travel out, I'm sure, will love it. A load of sangria, watch their team somewhere weird, great. But that's Banbury United not getting a pre-season friendly. That's Oxford City not getting a pre-season friendly. That's Didcot Town not getting a pre-season friendly. Then we used to send the youth team to, let's say one of the local non-league Hellenic League clubs, like, say, Milton United or somebody like that. Again, they lose out. There's a position within the community here.
That's good to have as well, yeah. Same way, my team, Mansfield, likes to go to Portugal, but there's other clubs around the area, like my local, Shirebrook Town, that don't get one.
Blackwell,
Blackwell,
Reneth.
Loads. Definitely. Always Alfreton always gets one, that's for certain.
Oh, then with the massive badge, do they still sell all the badges there?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I got a few myself.
Yeah, that club shop. Yeah, I don't go in there. The wife would kill me.
Yeah, the wives would be dragging you out.
It was like, no, you got too much football rubbish as it is. No idea what she means. No idea.
So, I mean, you've ground up a lot longer than I have and some other people. What would you say is the best thing about ground up?
The people. The fact is that there are more grounds than you'll ever be able to visit in your lifetime.
Yeah.
I think if you were to ask my missus, what she'd say is it's that moment when you turn up at somewhere and they go, "I haven't seen you before. Where are you from?" And we say, "Oxford." And they go, "Okay, so why are you here?" had it recently, actually. We just got back from honeymoon, and as every, of course, honeymooning couple ever does, they land in Austria thinking, the Sound of Music, the mountains, and all that. No, we went to watch ASV Salzburg in the Austrian 6th Division. Literally dumped our cases at the hotel, jumped in a taxi, and we turned up, and the bloke on the gate said, "Where are you from?" And we said, "Oxford." And they went, "Why are you here?" I went, "Well, you're at home in about half an hour's time, aren't you?"
As simple as that.
They were great. If they're listening, ASV Salzburg, please get promoted next Saturday. You're absolutely wonderful.
Well, that's brilliant.
That's the kind of silliness. That's why the best thing about ground hopping is the people. People forget it isn't. Football clubs aren't made out of bricks and mortar. They're made out of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially non-league.
Oh yeah,
especially non-league.
So we turned up at some funny little municipal athletic stadium. It's not the greatest ground in the world, but the people, who were queuing up for a beer at half time, they're going, "You don't speak German, do you?" No, there's a good reason for that.
No, but they're always the best, especially when it's a club official. I've had it a few times myself. I remember
they're like, "Why on earth are you here?" And I just think that's great. And of course, then if you got something about them, take the time to find out a bit about them.
Yeah.
What what makes them tick? In the same way that most people will know the story of Milton Keynes and AFC Wimbledon. Well, there's little stories like that all over the world.
Yes.
Go and find out about them. ASV Salzburg, for example, their whole reason to be is they just wanted a club for local people.
Beautiful.
No more, no less. And the fact is that, and so when you can tap into that, people love you for it, because it's my little adage about making friends wherever we go.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Because if you understand what makes them tick, you'll get so much more out of it.
Yeah, I mean that's what I did when I visited Gladwell. Pretty much this time last year. In fact, I think it was this Saturday last year.
Hall Corner, yeah.
Hall Corner. I got welcome to Hall Corner. I've never had that before. But like second half, talking to him, so I heard you were really high up. What happened? And I think they were in what we now know as the National League North.
Yes, they were
playing Chase Town in a playoff game, for the National League, and they failed ground grading, and the football hating council wouldn't rehouse them, essentially. Just literally a couple of meters down the road, 5,000 capacity ground, which would have seen them being enough. Exactly the same thing at Hucknall Town. They've gone into the National League, what we now know it as, obviously, but the ground's not good enough. Gresley Rovers, another one. I'd get rid of that ground grading thing, but at the same time, lovely to hear the story.
Oh yeah.
Gladwell had 1,300 packed into that little Hall Corner for that game.
Yeah, no, find out the story. There's always one there somewhere, and just try and understand them a bit, because the difficulty with ground hopping is that the whole culture is doing everywhere once.
Yes.
Now, and of course, doing everywhere once means it's almost like the little soap opera where you turn up for one episode and then leave. And understand that, understand your position in that. That's why I never ever expect any special treatment, because I'm not coming back. So yeah, that I'll some of the clubs I've sort of fallen in love with a bit. They'll get a retweet, and they'll get a anything I can do to help, please shout. But the best thing I can do for them is, perhaps with the Ground Hop UK hat on, is come back with a coach load.
Mm-hmm.
And say, right, okay, there were me and the wife last time. Well, let's come back with a couple of hundred and really swell your attendance. But that's another string to the bow, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's obviously going to change kick-off time where the players can play, and we are putting money on the gate for them when you bring in 200 odd more of you.
Well, that's the aim anyway.
Yeah, definitely. So this is the part I've been looking forward to asking you about. So how many grams are you on now? Are you on about 2,400, you say?
You're very exact. 2,402.
Very close. I know when I watched you on BBC, it was like 2,380. I watched it today just to make sure I got the number. So I thought, he's done a few more since then, I bet.
Yeah, not that many, because as I say, look, not even I am going to spend my honeymoon doing, wall-to-wall football. That's no.
No, fair dues.
Just the four.
I can remember listening to you on Football Is That Is What I Want, and you picked a ground as your favourite. I'm going to wonder if that's still the same opinion as your best ground. I'll not mention it, but you said off air to me.
It is Glentoran, and it will remain Glentoran, because Glentoran is it's almost I describe it as, if you don't like Glentoran, I would question why you're doing the hobby. I mean, what's not the like to a massive bowl, a massive terracing bowl with 2 pitch roof stands and a machine gun nest in one corner?
I don't know that machine gun nest, but no.
Yeah, because it's right next door to the Harland and Wolff shipyard, and some numpty just before World War II decided that what they needed to defend an entire shipyard from the might of Hermann Goering and the Luftwaffe was one machine gun nest. The Harland and Wolff shipyard got bombed to Kingdom Come, so did the Oval, and the Oval ended up being rebuilt by their own fans.
Wow.
Like I say, go and get the backstory. Glentoran is just a wonderful place in its own right. I mean, if you were to turn up there out with a game and were able to get in and go for a walk round, you just sit there and go, oh. And then when you sit with somebody like Ricky Ray, the secretary, and you just think, actually, this is more special than you think. It's better. It's, you will not get a better. Yeah, I put it this way: I shall be a very happy man if I ever find a ground better than Glentoran.
May that search continue.
It will be search to destruction, mainly my own.
Yeah. Are they moving out soon, though?
No, they're looking to redevelop it. But like most things, it always depends on money. Now, I've seen the plans, and what they will build is a thoroughly functional, perfectly adequate ground that is perfect for Glentoran's needs. And I will hate every moment of it because it ain't the Oval as I understand it. You'll lose that big terracing bowl. The machine gun nest, I think, is listed, so that will be there somewhere, but it'll probably be outside the ground. And then you've got 2 boxy stands that do everything a club playing in the top flight of Northern Irish football needs it to. Is it the Oval? No.
Do you know when that is? Or is it obviously subject to financial?
It's all finances. It could be 2 years, it could be 10. Personally, don't take the risk. Just book your flight to George Best Airport and walk there. It's that good.
I'll definitely keep that. I'll add that to the to-do list right now.
That's another one to to-do list. But no, if you don't like Glentoran, there's something wrong with you.
Oh, fair play. I mean, I saw a game on TV a few weeks ago, and I said to me, "Look at that ground. How good is that Glentoran were playing? I think they won 6-2. It was that game."
Oh yes. Well,
and I said, "What a ground that is! I'd love to go there." And he's like, "Why? It looks rubbish." I'm like,
then you're in the. Whoever said that, don't become a groundhopper. You're in the wrong hobby.
But we said off air, you had a top 10 grounds.
Oh, which one? My top 10 has about 30 grounds, by the way. I think a lot of hoppers have that. Oh yeah, you need to go there. Yeah, the one that I mentioned because I know you're going to South Wales is Garw, Garw. Garw is, if the ground graders ever got to Garw, they just walk the other way. A ground grader cannot deal with Garw. It's just too weird. I mean, the pitch probably isn't the right size to go up. Probably isn't now. It's got a stand, but the stand it just feels like it's in the clouds. The changing rooms are a converted house. There's the remains of a railway line at one side of it, but there's no railway on it. They're looking to reinstate steam trains there. Can you imagine that? But I can sit here and try and describe Garw. You can't. The only way I can describe Garw to you is just look up your South Wales Alliance fixtures and go. It's that good. It's so weird. It's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Fingers crossed for a midweek when I'm there. When I'm in Wales.
I'd have and now you've got a car, mate. It's one I'd do on a Saturday. They haven't got lights, so you're not going to see two. The league they're in it does the odd midweeker, not that many. I'd be tempted to just say, look, here's a Saturday, head down the M4 to Bridgend, and instead of going into Bridgend, take the road up from the M4 at Salm Park rather than down, and just keep going. And you will get to, I think it's Ponticama where it is the village. But
Yeah.
do your research. They're very, very good on Twitter. Go and follow them. They're good. Lovely club, and the ground is jaw-dropping.
Absolutely. So, what other honourable mentions are you willing to share? I'll let you name as many as you like. How many countries have you watched football in, by the way?
Yes, 27.
A lot to choose from then.
That's a tough one. I'm going to give an honourable mention to a little club that we turned up at. And this was number 27. This isn't the greatest football ground in the world, not by a long shot, but it's just how strange the evening was. I'm going to mention FC Balzers of Liechtenstein. Now, Liechtenstein is a country that has no football league.
It has a national team but no football league.
Correct.
Yeah.
There are only 7 football clubs in Liechtenstein, and all 7 play in the Swiss league. By far the most famous is what we call Vaduz, and my German mate Andreas says is Vaduz. And they play in the Swiss Challenge League, the second tier. But they do have access to European football. And the reason is there is the Liechtensteiner Cup. So now you're now thinking, okay, 7 football teams, it's not much of an FA Cup, is it? Well,
No.
It sort of isn't, but all the reserve sides of those teams can play in there. So there's 4, maybe 5 rounds of it. And Vaduz normally win it, but we got to see one of the semi-finals at Balzers. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I'm an Oxford United fan, and we had Benji Buchel, who is Liechtensteiner's international goalkeeper, on the books a few years ago. Now, I knew darn well he'd be playing for Vaduz that day, so when they were in the warm-up, and I just strolled round to behind the goal he was sat at, and went, "Hello, Benji, we still remember you at Oxford." And you should have seen the look on the poor bloke's face. Like, what? So, got me photo. Nice guy, but it is mighty strange when you're sat in a little grass bank with these seats in it. At your back is the Rhine River, and behind the Rhine River, you're in Switzerland. If you look in front of you, over the top of the mountains that form the backdrop, once you get over those mountains, you're in Austria. And if you look about really beyond the trees to your right, you're then in Switzerland. It is.
Wow.
You will go to better grounds than FC Balzers, but I promise you this: have you ever sat at a football ground and just thought, this is so weird? These are 2 teams that are in a country that has no league, but they do have an FA Cup. So I'm seeing a side, that 2 Liechtensteiner sides, where the 2 lineups are posted on the Swiss FA, as well as the Liechtensteiner one. And the goalkeeper I've seen play before, last time at Wembley. They made the paint pot trophy. That was weird. Other ones, I've got a massive affinity for Swedish football. Before the pandemic, we were organising a Swedish shop every year, which took in the sort of clubs that, well, if you've heard of them, we're probably you probably wouldn't be interested. But that was lovely. That line about what on earth are you doing here? That's what we used to do a lot of in Sweden. And there's some places in Sweden, Karlskoga, which is where Alfred Nobel was born. That stadium is quite something.
Wow.
We went to the old Hammarby ground before it shut down. That was some of the big step terracing there. Oof. But often it's the ones in the middle of nowhere that were just these little country. I mean, I remember one where the chairwoman wanted to make a little speech to her English guest, didn't speak a word of English, so she wrote it in Swedish, put the whole thing through Google Translate and read it. It worked. We understood until, of course, somebody asked her a question and the poor thing didn't know, couldn't understand a word.
Yeah.
You know, something in the Swedish 6th Division. It was just wonderful. You know, you just want to give people like that just a gigantic hug. Just thank them for doing what they do. You know, we went to one team in northern, just north of Stockholm, called FC Films. It doesn't mean the same thing as in here, but their claim to fame is they once played Torremolinos.
Spanish thing.
Yeah.
Just like, oh, we played Torremolinos once.
Yeah, and they have the poster to prove the point as well. You know, look, we played Torremolinos. You know, just like,
big day for the club. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're just sat there trying to look. Yeah, okay. Marvelous stuff, you know, life affirming stuff. Or, you know, the place where we suddenly got to the ground and realized that this was on me, Todd, that we couldn't actually get home. So they looked up the local bus service to try and get us back to Stockholm. It was like, well, you must do it this way. And I just sat there going, just carry on being what you are. You're bloody wonderful. You really are. And that's what it's about. You know, it's the people. I can give you a long list of wonderful places to go and see a game, you know, or another one that was, we held my stag weekend in Tirana. Yeah, Albania.
Oh yes, yeah.
And we got adopted by the local FA for the weekend. So there was 9 of us sat at a behind closed doors Albanian Premier League game because they'd shut it due to crowd trouble at the last game. Yeah. And then suddenly realised we were there, so we suddenly became the Scottish delegation for the weekend. And so, you know, we were turning up. You know, they had police cordon there to stop people going to the game. And our Albanian minibus driver sort of pulled down the window, and the little Scottish delegation, oh, come through. Okay.
They're all at the red carpet for you while you were there as well.
Well, yeah, well, we had director's box seats, yes.
Oh, that's fantastic.
They came round with the team sheets and, you know, please, there is a bar up there. Oh, yeah, we're on a stag weekend. What do you think, fella?
Yeah, we'll take care of that, mate. Yeah.
Yep, we're just taking care of business here, you know. So there it was, you know. But again, it's people. It's the fact that they did that. The Albanian, ND at the Albanian FA was prepared to just, you know, we had some visitors, and so they looked after us, you know, and that was, you know, we made sure that they were thanked, and, you know, I hope we didn't sort of do anything that was sort of culturally wrong, you know, but you try and just, you know, you just try and do the right thing, I think, if you can. I certainly don't want to make it sound like, you know, we went anywhere on any of these things thinking that because we were guests, we had some kind of privilege, you know. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
You know, you are a visitor, you know, watch your P's and Q's, don't do something stupid. And, you know, that way, with a bit of luck, the next person who comes along will also get treated well. That's my way of looking at it anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There were 2 grounds that you mentioned to me when we met in Ilkley. I obviously asked, when are you doing a ground up in Cornwall? And the 2 grounds you gave to me.
Oh, and now I've got to remember them. Well, one would have to be Falmouth Town.
Yes, that was one of them.
Falmouth is just unbelievable. Yeah, it's an old Southern League club. They looked like they were moving out, and now they've decided they don't. That is the one that most of you guys, you're on a couple of hundred. You'll be discovering that fairly soon. It's a bit of a mess to get to because just the distance is involved, but it's beautiful. No, and then when you've done a few more, or earlier, because I've now told you, Nampian Rovers. Now, Nampian Rovers play in the deepest, darkest recesses of the Cornwall Pyramid. I forget which league it is. It might be the Duchy League.
Yes, I've checked, yeah.
But their Ground Victoria Bottoms is built out of a disused China clay mine. And the best way I can describe it is, well, 2 ways. I'll give you the sort of the physical thing, and that is the miners on their days off, or the ones who are unemployed, dug it out and leveled the pitch under, you know, on spare time. to provide themselves with a community facility. I think that's too sterile a description. The best way I can describe it is it's Alice in Wonderland. There are bits of terrace here, trees here. There's a balcony behind one goal. There's seated. There's 2 bits of cover, and then one bit that where you park the car park just overlooks it. And I remember taking a friend of mine, Chris Garner, to it, and I won't tell you because we're in polite company. I said, I don't care. We're going to go and watch another team, Roche, which is another one well worth a visit. And we pulled in at the car park, and he came in and he saw what was in front of him to his right, and it was a 4-letter word, shall we say? And he went, "Just get me out of this car right now. That's my afternoon. I'm happy." And it was. And Garrow again. Football grounds don't make clubs. People do. Garrow, and Nampian, both. Wonderful people, wonderful ground. But just go and do it. It will change the way you think about a football ground. What do I need? What do you need at a football ground? Nampian will just make you think, actually, I don't need that, and I do need this. And what I need is something that's so weird, it's wonderful.
All these grounds that you mentioned.
Go on.
All these grounds that you mentioned, Garrow, Falmouth, Nampeen, as one mentioned, Glentoran, would you say that they're one of their own kind?
No.
So weird that there's only one of them.
Garrow, Nampeen, yes. Okay. Glentoran is a throwback. Okay. Once upon a time, Oxford United used to have when we were at the Old Manor Ground, we had a pitch-roof stand. It wasn't as good as Glentoran's, and there was only one of them. But you got somewhere like Stafford Rangers, there is a pitch-roof stand there, an old-style one. You go to Fulham, Craven Cottage, the old Archibald Leach stand is still there. And it's all part of that, if you like. Glentoran is historic. It is beautiful. But it's the best of a type, and that is the classic old-fashioned stadium bowl with 2 pitch-roof stands. There's actually another one that's very like it in Germany with just the 1 pitch-roof stand, and I'll probably butcher this because my German is non-existent, and that's Westfalia Herne, Herne. It's the Stadium am Schloss Strunkelt, which is the stadium of the Strunkelt Castle. Look it up. It's
Herne. I'll mention that. Westfalia Herne.
Westfalia Herne. Yeah, it's a Westphalia. Yeah. Westfalia Herne.
Herne. Oh, okay,
again, it's on the sort of the ones who are used to doing more European stuff than I do. It's on their bucket list. I got invited on a friend's stag weekend, and his German is so much better than mine. And it was on his bucket list, and we did that of a Sunday afternoon. It was so good, it got rid of my hangover.
That's when you know it's good, isn't it?
Yeah. I just remember there was about 4 or 5 of us stood, and you walk up and you stand at the top of this stadium bowl, and the whole thing is just juts out in front of you. And if I told you what Chris Garner said when he got to Nampian, well, I said exactly the same word. Just oh.
No, but I mean, in terms of Nampian, obviously Mr. 7,000 ground man I met at Clay Cross that night said gave me 3 grounds. Nampian was one of them. So I'm looking forward to that one. Definitely.
Dave would, yeah. Dave is a very, very, very. He's one of the big daddies of the British hobby, but he's also a damn good bloke as well.
Yeah,
he's one of the guys where I can sit there. When we were at that Northwest Counties hop, the previous game to the Ilkley one was, where was it? Staten, that was right, yeah. And we were sat there, and this only happens on this. He was sat there with me, and we were just having a chinwag, and he was giving me some tips on how to find Austrian non-league games.
How to find Austrian? Is footballology not enough there?
No.
Okay.
Look, let me give you a little sort of a hint on footballology. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's revolutionized things, but like every other source, it's a source of information. It's not the be all and end all.
Okay.
And if you're particularly abroad, because let's face it, it's run by two very talented Norwegian guys.
Mm-hmm.
But there are limits to what two Norwegian guys can do. And I still maintain that there are two things that you should always have if you can. Access to the National FA website, wherever you're going, and then you can drill down whatever their version of either Comet in Wales or Full Time in this country, or Fußball.de in Germany, all the others, and drill down, learn a little bit, learn sort of a few bits and pieces of the language you're in, and drill down and get it straight from the horse's mouth. As I say, I've got my subscription. I wouldn't give it up. I think they're great, but don't see it as the be all and the end all, because it isn't. And another mention for a guy who does a lot of really good work on fixtures, and that's Chris Bedford and the Football Traveller. He will find you fixtures that you didn't know existed. And as a weekly publication coming through your door, we've all gone electronic, we've got an electronic this, that, but sometimes there is no substitute for having all your games arranged by day and then by league. And I hope Chris keeps that magazine going for a mighty long time. It really is very handy. But again, the more information you have, then you can spot the ones, well, this says it's on Monday and this says it's on Tuesday. Well, then you can check, can't you?
Yeah.
Last thing you want to be doing is turning up at the wrong ground.
Oh, yeah. It's happened to some people, I bet, hasn't it?
On one occasion.
Oh, dear.
You do your best, but, we're all human.
Yeah, we are, mate. Yeah, definitely. So we've had the best. What about the worst? Bound to be a few in there you probably didn't like, isn't there?
In terms of worst grounds, I think I'll make my usual comment is that people don't make grounds. Sorry, bricks and mortar don't make clubs. People do.
Yeah.
The ones that I suppose what we call as tick move ons is any form of the sort of homogenized, stick it in a cage, 3G pitch with an arena stand in it. I get why they're there. I really do. Yeah. But they're clearly not for my benefit, are they? And I suppose they work beautifully if you're in what I would call a participatory league. I'm on committee at the North Barks. Now, any one of our clubs would love one of those because you can play whenever you like. You've got a set of floodlights and you've got cover for 50 people. Do I want to particularly visit them? No, not really. It's one it's one in the book, and that's about as much as it is. Those, yeah, I'm not gonna get excited about them.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I don't mind if it's got something about it, though. I mean, I'll give you an example. Yeah. Ilkley. Yeah. It's got a stand. Well, it's not the best, but it's got that view.
Oh, yeah. Well, again, at least you've got something there. I mean, again, with the Groundhop UK hat on, I tend to make the view that for a hop game to work, you want a minimum of one of three things to happen. That is great ground, great game, great staging. Well, we know the ground wasn't up to much. It does what it needs to and no more. We know the game was awful. I mean, when all I can do is entertain myself by watching the 0-0 Merchants squirm. But their staging was first class. Yeah. There were things they did which I thought were really good. Like, they got the locally produced beers in. That stuff does well. The catering was spot on. They really thought about what they were trying to do. And hopefully they did, well, I know they did very well out of it. But as a ground that I'd want to go to twice, no.
I mean, I probably will personally, just to get the ladies' team in one day. But not many times.
Oh yeah, that's not hopping. That's you. That's you being that's you doing a bit of community work, which is great. Take my last weekend. I did Wantage Town and Lambourne Sports, two North Berkshire League Cup finals. I'm on committee. I wasn't ground hopping. I was just that was my bit of community, I suppose. But yeah, in terms of worst ground visited, it would be some 3G cage anyway. I wouldn't want to put names because often they do a very good job for those clubs. They're just not that. They're not built for. They're not for groundhoppers.
Yeah, they're just for themselves to make a bit of cash on because they can rent it out, can't they?
It does what it needs to for them. You know, no more, no less. I suppose where I get a little bit, I saddened. I wouldn't say any more than that. Is if you get someone like say Concert, who I did their old Bellevue ground, and it was glorious. And then you see pictures of the new one, and it's
no. Not somewhere you'd like to contact.
I'm sure it does what Concert needs it to, but put it this way, it's there as a wet weather backup next time I'm doing a Northern League ground.
Absolutely. You've got to think of the positives.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the only way I can do it with that. I will get there, but it's not on the list of priorities.
Oh, fair enough. So I just want to touch on before I move on to the next question, just on Ground Up UK. Like when did you form Ground Up UK with Chris?
I didn't, is the answer. It's very much Chris Berezet's baby.
Yeah.
What happened was that his wife Jen said, "You need a deputy," because you know he put his back out, I think, on a Hellenic hop or something, and sort of struggled round to the end. And what it initially started is we always did football together. It was easy enough for me to drive up to Long Eaton and then to pick him up and do a Northern League game or something. And his wife said, "You need a deputy." And that deputy ended up being me. And initially all it was I was there to sort of hold the fort if something went wrong. It never did, and so far it hasn't. But in more, I suppose the term deputy has become sort of, I have more of an impact. I run the Whitney Hop. We swap places for the Whitney Hop each year because I'm on site, so to speak. And yeah, the answer is I suppose for the last 11, 12 years now, it's been more of a collaborative effort. I'm a salesman by trade, so some of the hops that you're seeing coming through have been sort of places that I've sort of tapped up, said, you know, we need to be speaking to this, see if we can get our secret, see if we can have a conversation with anybody in authority. Scotland, I will claim for my own. I was sat watching Camelon Juniors with a friend of mine, Splodgy, and bloke comes up to me, he said, "You do realise the Lowland League will be interested," and gave me a contact number, a guy called Jamie McQueen, who's now at Edinburgh United. And it turned out the Lowland League hadn't even thought of it. But that was enough for me to be able to say, right, let's have a conversation with the Lowland League. The Lowland League also, the same set of people run the East of Scotland, and that's how we came to be in Scotland. You know, but after that, then it was a question of Chris travelling up to, I think they had a meeting somewhere at Abington Services on the M74, and they then went through the sort of, you know, the more nitty-gritty side of it. But you know, and it's things like that. You know, often you do need two people there. It's a silly one, like you know, he'll be doing Scotland was a good example actually, because I travelled up with another person who helps out, Craig, to do the program packs while Chris ran the coach. You know, so it meant when the coach arrived, we could hand everybody, right, here's your room key, here's your program packs and your tickets. You know, and it's just good service that. If you've only got one of you doing it, then you're relying on the league doing it. And then if something goes wrong, then, you know, you've got nobody there to troubleshoot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's become a lot more collaborative over the years. Although I missed my first hop for a long time. Over Easter, I was nowhere to be seen on that Hellenic hop, which was kind of funny because, yeah, Robin and I had to wait 2 years, 3 months for our honeymoon because of COVID.
Yeah.
And yeah, so there we were, sat in our little flat in the Tyrol in Austria, in amongst the mountains. And there's people saying, "Well, what's happened to the Worcester Raiders game?" And I'm going, "I'm in Austria, fella. I haven't got a clue. Why are you asking me?"
Sounds like a lot of work has to go into organising them.
It does, yeah. I always make the comment that if we've done our jobs right, we have to do very little on the day. You know, so people see us swanning around counting the crowd, because if you've got it right, you do the hard work in the meantime. I mean, again, Scotland was a classic case where, I'd had a bit of a nightmare with programs and getting everything together during the week. And when we got to the pickup at Inverkeithing, one club had been let down very badly by their distributor. So the bloke ended up running their programs down from Inverkeithing right the way down to Hamilton. And their programs arrived about 5 minutes before the coach did. So, lads, there's your hotel keys. Now, don't bother me for the next 10 minutes. But you get the job done, and that's the point. You build in all your fail safes, and you do. If you do your job right, when you actually turn up at the ground, you should have to do very little, just preparation really and planning.
Yeah, the hard work pays off as well.
Yes,
it does. Yeah, I certainly enjoyed it on the Northwest Day on that Sunday. I thought it was fantastic seeing everybody. It was brilliant. Just apart from that,
let me give you a little sort of word to the good, piece of advice from someone who's done a few of these. Mm-hmm. A lot of people tend to use the hops to do things that they feel very comfortable with. So if you're used to step 5, step 6, and you've done the Northwest Counties, you'll look at, say, the Hellenic or the one we got coming up in the Southern Counties East. It's sort of more of the same. And of course, the advantage is if you've got, say, 7 games in a league that you know is going to be of a standard, and it's all over a weekend. Superb. No. Do that, but do one a season that's completely weird. Do one of the Welsh is a classic example of it. I did it when I hadn't done anything that low down the pecking order, and loved every moment of it because it was different. And that to me is what I take out of ground hopping is doing things that are a bit different. Don't be frightened of the fact that it's 6 or 7 notches down the Welsh pyramid. That to me is just fab. 2 villages squaring up to each other, and trust me, in the valleys that's often literally the case. I remember the days when we had a bloke at one of the leagues we worked with, name no names, and every time there was a sending off, he turned to Chris Berrers and go, "I'm really, really sorry. I'm really, really sorry." And there's Chris going, "Go on, hit him."
I could not imagine him doing that, Chris.
Because there it was, it was Sunday morning, the lower reaches of the Welsh pyramid, and it's just, you got the valleys coming up. You got a little club that sat there, busted a gut to welcome you, and of course the league are desperate to be seen in the best possible sense. And somebody goes through them, if such a thing was possible, it would be a 3-footed challenge.
3-footed challenge.
And he gets the red card, and I'm really, really sorry. It's
absolutely me there behind camera with Joe on match day. He's going, come on then. We're all getting involved.
Oh, what, Joe? What, Groundhopping FC?
No, match days.
Oh, yeah.
FC, yeah.
Yes.
I'm Skelton.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Get in there.
Yeah, I'll try my best, but
I love it because it is culturally very, very different, and that to me is what makes me tick. Anything that's, as I said, I've covered a few bases when it comes to countries, but some of the times it is just fun. It's just great, sat there in Norway. That's one of my little claims to fame, actually. Yeah, I got to see Ødegaard before he got famous as a 15-year-old playing for Strom's Hodset at Lillestrøm. That was
wow.
And it was only when my German mate Andreas phoned me up a few months later. He said, "Have you still got your team sheet from Lillestrøm?" And I went, "Yeah." And he went, "Check it." He said that lad Ødegaard was 15 and he's now just signed for Real Madrid.
Yeah,
he lost 3-0. It had made no impression on us whatsoever. Of course, now he's at Arsenal. So small world.
The famous chant, "Where were you when you were and you can literally say, "Yeah, I saw him."
I did. And before you ask, yes, 3 is the answer. Have I ever seen a player that has gone on to make it big. Yeah, I've seen 3. Ødegaard is by far the most famous.
Yeah.
Then I'd say followed by Jamie Vardy, who I saw at Stocksbridge Park Steels back in the day.
Yeah.
He didn't score, by the way, which apparently was quite unusual. And the other one was Fitz Hall, you may remember at Palace. I saw him at Cheshire United back in the day. Those are the 3.
I'm not too familiar with Fitz Hall, but yeah, the other 2 definitely.
Yeah, but Vardy, it was only recently, in fact, during lockdown, I went through all my records and photos and stuff, and actually managed to find a very bad photo of him playing. So it was Vardy. But, it's just one of those things. I suppose I missed out on Charlie Austin in the North Berkshire League by about 4 years, but, he's still great. Yeah, if you're a QPR fan, I suppose.
Right, so let's move on to who are the best fans you've come across on your travels, would you say?
The best fans are the ones who are the most downtrodden. It's the ones who've had to put up with the world being thrown at them. So, yeah, we mentioned it earlier about poor old Oldham. You sit in the ground with their fans, they're trying their damnedest to get their club back. I remember the gallows humour of Doncaster Rovers fans when they got relegated out of the league, and the heaven and earth that Leyton Orient and their fans. Absolutely wonderful. Those are the ones that I would always... It's always the way. The ones who understand that it isn't winning every week, that are the ones that I will always have time for. Or the 2 lads at ASV Salzburg who just couldn't get their heads around the fact that anybody outside of Salzburg would have even heard of them, let alone want to watch them. These are the people that I love them. I think they're great. Because, was it Randy Newman saying, what was it? Birmingham, prettiest city in Alabama. I don't know, I've never been to Birmingham, Alabama. It might be awful, but to them it is. And to those lads at ASV, to the Doncaster Rovers fans, to the Leyton Orient fan, their Birmingham, Alabama is the prettiest city. And who am I to argue with them?
No, mate. You guys, it's a great feeling to have that. To love your home that much.
It's that one-eyed, but who am I to argue with them? So best fans, any of those fans that no matter what life throws at them, and God knows they've had enough, still keep turn up week in, week out, and get behind their side. And we all know them.
Yeah. Fair play to them as well. So I'm guessing you probably guessed what I'm going to ask you next.
I'm not going to say worst fans because I'm not going to associate any club in particular. I've seen both the best and worst. I was there when 2 black players playing in what we would now call a championship were racially abused. Bananas thrown on the pitch in the late 80s and early 90s. Awful. I'm glad that largely has been stamped out. I will mention the fan who told my wife, why are you here? Why don't you go shopping?
Wow.
Her game too. Really important. Really important. But the one I'll give a dishonourable mention to was I've got 2 tickets to take my brother-in-law to watch Arsenal. Now, I've got time for the Arsenal. I've always found them to be fairly classy, and the ground is a humdinger. It really is. As new builds go, a lot of thought has gone into the Emirates. But I watched them when they were just about to sack Unai Emery. And they were playing Wolves, and Arsenal scored Torreira, perhaps.
Lucas Torreira.
Yeah. And it was, I sat there and I remember saying to Scott, this is going to be the classic 1-0 to the Arsenal.
Yeah.
And unlike the days of Tony Adams and Steve Bold and Martin Keown, Oxford boy, by the way, Wolves slung in a cross, and the guy nodded home, and it finished 1-1. And this bloke stood up and berated Emery. He said, This season is a disaster. We might only finish 5th. So I'm thinking, try telling that to a Southend United fan who that season got relegated out of the league and were lucky to have their club.
Yeah, you know? So that's the Bury fans.
Yeah, good, better example.
Or Macclesfield.
Yes, you name them. Or if you want to go back far enough, Third Lanark. But the fact is understand this understanding of who you are and what you are and where you sit in the whole firmament of it is really, really important. And that's the difference. So the best fans in the world, who are the ones who understand who they are, and the worst are the ones who really don't, because that's where the sexism, the racism, and just the plain misunderstanding of where they are. The fact is it is not a disaster to finish 5th in the Premier League. It really is not.
No, could be a lot worse. Could be Everton. Yeah. They might not be in it next season for where they're going. It's true.
It is. I say I know enough of their fans to have endless respect for them, but you know, it will seem. I think I would say what we're talking probably 1 in 3 chance they'll stay up now.
Yeah,
maybe not even that. Good. It will look very weird seeing them in the Championship. It really will. In the same way, perhaps it did in the 70s when Manchester United were there. But you know, I wish the club all the best. I've got no axe to grind on to them and their fans at all. But do they have a divine right to stay in top flight? Of course they don't.
No, absolutely not. I mean, as a Liverpool fan growing up, I can't really say the same personally. I was delighted to beat him yesterday, but again, yeah, they haven't done enough at the moment.
No, they haven't. I mean, the fact is football. A football league table is the ultimate meritocracy. The bottom line is, if you don't win enough football matches, you are going to get relegated, and if you don't, there's something wrong. You know, that's it. But you know, to go back to the point about fans, I love fans who just support their side no matter what. I'll give another little honourable mention. Actually, we took the Whitney Hop to a little club called the Sherborne Harriers, and the Sherborne Harriers play on a ground that is so obscure that when I sent the coordinates to Chris Berazet to put in the hot blurb that sent out to all our ticket to help them find it, he goes, "There isn't a football ground where you said." And I went, "Can you see the gatehouse?" "Yes." "Well, just beyond that, there's a pitch." And he scrolled in and said, "Oh, God, yeah, so there is." That's how obscure they are. They played in the Cheltenham League and finished bottom of the bottom division. They switched to the Cirencester League in the bottom division and finished bottom of the division. They then switched to the Witney and District League on the basis that the Witney League had more divisions, so they could be bad in a worse division. This season, we managed to get, I think it was about 130, 140 people to watch the Sherborne Harriers play Hatherot Reserves. And if you want to understand a club that understand they're not going to pull up any trees when it comes to winning football matches, they were wonderful. And it was wonderful just seeing people walk around on a Sunday morning with a silly grin on their face. Now, let's talk fans. How do you tell a fan, that Arsenal fan, that disaster of a season finishing 5th? Try talking to the Sherborne Harriers, who this season finished 6th from 12.
After finishing bottom of the bottom as well.
Yeah, that is Division 4 of the Whitney and District League, so what, the 5th division. Now, that's the first time they finished anything other than rock bottom for years.
Wow. Now, that is loyalty if you're watching them every week.
Is 5th such a disaster now?
No, they'd be delighted. They'd probably snap your hand off before the season if you offered them that, wouldn't they?
They certainly did, yeah. I mean, they won on the Hop game, and it was just watching people. Hoppers don't cheer. Have you noticed that?
No.
You know, when a goal goes in, it's writing down. When Sherborne won that Hop game, I promised they cheered. It was like that. We took a few people out of their comfort zones going there, but oh dear me. Talk about fans, talk about the people that follow Sherborne Harriers. There aren't many of them. hopefully there's a few more since we took the hop there, but
I mean, do you ever get emotionally involved in a game, even as a neutral sometimes? Do you think the game's so good? Go on, hope you score.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, completely.
Oh, man, I love that. That's the best thing about it going to neutral, in my opinion.
Eventually, sometimes if you go and see a club, it doesn't have to be on a hop game. Just see a club and they're just lovely to you.
Yeah.
And of course, you want to give them a cheer. And there are some that I'm still in contact with that I think they know in their heart of hearts that the chances of me coming back are very limited.
Yeah.
And that's where I could either say, right, with my Groundhop UK hat, let's organise the hop in the league that they're in, or when a friend of mine says, someone like yourself says, go and have I'm going to be in here, anywhere you'd suggest. Well, I did. Garrow are lovely.
Mm-hmm.
We've taken the hop there. I went on my own back, and Garrow, forget the ground, and Garrow could be playing in a 3G cage. They'd still be fab. It's just so happens it's a lovely club in a ground that you need to do before you die.
Yeah. No, I'll definitely keep that one in mind. See as you keep mentioning them.
Well, they're just another. I mean, there's no end of them. Nampian or another. But you just find every so often, if you step outside of your comfort zone, you just find these little nuggets, these little gems that are just, often they're hiding in plain sight. Nampian Rovers, you won't find it. It is on that Groundhopper app, but the fixtures aren't. You've got to do that for yourself.
Yeah.
The ground's on it because somebody had the good sense to put it on. But oof, dear me, what a place.
So, I know you've done 2,400, but if you could pick one ground you haven't done that you'd love to visit, what would it be?
Iodine Park, Millhead.
Simple answer, Millhead, done.
No, loads. Fort William.
Fort William, okay. I mean, obviously we've heard about him resigning last couple of days, haven't we? I'm hoping that's not the end of the club. Hopefully
I'm done it.
Yeah, same here.
The difficulty they've got is that Fort William isn't a football town; it's a shinty town.
Yeah.
So, I'm assuming they'll go into the North Caledonian League, but there isn't an easy fit. The North Cali is basically Inverness North.
Mm-hmm.
So they are immediately going to come a very southerly based club in that league, but that's where they were before they went into the Highland League. Their only other option is the Midlands League, which is a Dundee based league, really. Sort of the Tay up to Dundee. Well, that's an awful fit. Or the North Region Juniors, which is a sort of an Aberdonian thing. Mm-hmm. So there's no easy. That's not going to be easy for them. But let's hope. I mean, I suppose whichever way you look at it, if they do go into the North Caledonian League, it does mean that they'll swap a trip to Wick each season for a trip to Thurso, which is further. But then again, there's quite a few Highland League clubs in and around Aberdeen, the Inveruries, the Fraserboroughs, those. Wick, Cover got up, but Banks of Dee, who of course are Aberdeen, who've replaced them, it might just be the breath of fresh air they needed. The other thing is if you're getting beaten week in, week out, it does take a certain amount of backbone to just keep going. And I suspect they can get together a competitive side for the North Caledonian. In the long term, they might be better off for it. Certainly, Banks of Dee are a far better prospect for the Highland League than the dear, poor, moribund Fort William are.
Fair point. Hopefully they get the right question.
Yeah, no, there's so many, but I mean, in this country, it would of my sort of weird grounds I want to do, Millhead would be very high on that list. Other than that, abroad, the one that I'm just trying to remember, what's it called? Oh, Valencia will be very high on my list.
Okay.
The
Mestalla.
Pardon? Yeah.
The Mestalla, yeah.
The Mestalla. It's those terraces. I've been on steep terraces before. Cadiz is quite something as well, but the Mestalla is on a different level, and it's one of the few ones where I wouldn't bother buying good seats. I would just go for the top bit of the fondo behind the goal, on the basis that I know I'll be watching the game from between the knees. Yeah, it's like that. I'm not great with heights, but I think that one's just got to be done.
Obviously, I think there's talk of a moving as well.
Oh no, they're building. It's as ever with these things that there's a half-built stadium and no money. So it's one where I think you sort of do it while you still can.
Yeah, like the San Siro, pretty
again,
much.
jump on a plane, get the masks out, and see what we can do.
Of course, yeah. I'm going to ask you a different question. Quite an interesting one there. See if it puts you on the spot at all. If you could bring back one demolished ground, what would it be and why?
Probably the old Enfield one.
The old Enfield?
Yeah, Southbury Road, was it? Yeah. It's
okay.
I've seen the pictures. It looks fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a sort of a more selfish side to it. If you drive down, I think it's the A3, is it? Or is it the A6? Down through Enfield, and you've got the QE2, which is the new Enfield Town Ground.
Yes.
And you pass the Showcase Cinema. Well, that's where the old ground was.
Mm-hmm.
And I seem to find my way driving down that road a lot. I did a funny little Sunday League game on a Wednesday evening there, down that part recently as well. And you pass that darn cinema. And the annoyance is that I did my dissertation at uni on the relocation of Oxford United.
Mm-hmm.
And my tutor was an Enfield fan. And he was a season, he said, come along. And of course, it's your teacher, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I didn't. Never got that.
Okay.
And then then you could start getting silly about it and look at all those wonderful old grounds that are gone. But yeah, that would be my most obvious point of pain. Another one that I'll throw in, because I did the right thing for a change, is Billingham Synthonia. I never got to.
Mm-hmm.
They suddenly announced that they were leaving, and we had a Groundhop game in the Northern Counties East. And Chris Beresay he said, go. And I said, no, my responsibility is to the event that we're organising. I am not disappearing just because it happens to be convenient. So I did the right thing by the Hop and the right thing by the club we were trying to promote here. That's the right thing was done. I did not go, but I missed out. So if they could have just held on for another couple of weeks, of course it's now gone, demolished. I'll never go there. But in the end, you can't do everything, I suppose.
No, it happens, doesn't it? I mean, I missed out on Griffin Park. I mean, I did a whole section on demolished ground during lockdown. Some I would like to have seen, like Neen Park, the old Bruston and Diamonds one. But Bootham Crescent I got to, but didn't really take many photos, so I missed that silly opportunity. But again, I did see that one, thankfully.
I did it a number of occasions. I never took photos there. Nen Park was an interesting one because I went to it first, pre-season friendly with Oxford, so more or less how I got into this. And it was sort of half built, but here's the funny part: the floodlights were always awful.
Yeah,
I know the guys who take photographs for Oxford United really well, and they dreaded Nen Park. It was awful. But in terms of what you did, in terms of what it did for Russian and Diamonds, it was superb. Although I do have one funny little story to add. I got married first time round on the Saturday afternoon, typical. And Oxford United were due to play away at Russian and Diamonds. Well, that was an easy one for me because of living in Banbury at the time. So it was like, oh, well, lads, I'll have to miss this one. I'm getting married. And then it got moved for Setanta to the Thursday evening. So I turned up and all the boys were going in and going, yeah, you got that move for your benefit. I went, I promise you I didn't. And of course, what happened? We lost 5-0 in front of the TV, so it didn't work out well in the end. But yeah, no, I used to pick up my Doc Martin boots there. That was great. They used to do them very cheap in the club shop. So I used to wait until I needed a new pair of shoes and wait until we played Rushton and Diamonds and go and buy a pair of shoes. They must have thought I was a right prat walking through the away turnstiles with a box of shoes. That's what used to happen. Yeah,
good suit game before I go home.
Yeah, but there you go. Yeah, no, they were. It's a R&D. That was because Kettering moved in for about 6 months afterwards, didn't they? Yeah, it is. That just felt like a waste because I mean the Phoenix Club are at Rushton and Higham, aren't they?
Yeah, Hayden Road, I believe it's called.
Pardon?
At Hayden Road.
Yeah, Hayden Road. Yeah, it's Rushton and Higham, but of course, which is the old original Rushton Town Council. It's sort of gone full circle. So, but yeah, sad to say that was it was the house that Max Griggs built. So yeah, that was about but I did get there. Thanks, ex-wife.
So we'll wrap it up with a question we ask everybody, and that is: if you could sum up football or groundhopping in 3 words, what would it be? 3 separate words or a 3-word phrase?
Fun, because if it isn't fun, you're not doing it. People, because that's what it's about in the end, and travel.
Fun, people,
because travel. if you don't enjoy any of those 3, then you're not doing the hobby. If you don't enjoy traveling, forget it.
Yeah,
you're not going to do much. If it isn't fun, you're not going to do it. And I still maintain clubs are not made of bricks and mortar; they're made out of people.
Clubs are not made of bricks and walls; they're made out of people. Quote Laurence Reade. That should be the Ground Up UK quote. That wouldn't it? How good would that be?
Yeah, except then that would give me a lovely excuse to do every single ground on a 3G cage.
But no, Laurence, thank you very much for coming on, mate. It's been fantastic. It's a shame Ben couldn't be here, or Joe, for this one because it missed out on an absolute cracker.
Oh, well,
but
thank you.
I'm sure hopefully I'll see you before that Gwent Valley's hop. I mean, we mentioned Ilfracombe Town was a ground we both needed. That'll be a good one.
Yeah, do a shout if you're going. I see a lot of that part of the world because, as I say, Robin's from Bristol, so we do spend a fair amount of time visiting family in Bristol, and then it's not exactly difficult to then shoot down the M5. So yeah, you'll find a few bits of that.
Yeah. Okay, this has been the FANA Fan Podcast. We'll see you next time. Thank you.